Yeah, good afternoon. Nice to see you, and thank you for arranging that, because it was really a kind of a spontaneous idea, because I came to the UK for another occasion, and then yeah, this idea came up that I could come here, we could discuss the project, and maybe also I could present it to you. It really works. I'm coming from an institute that's called Systems and Innovations Research, so which means we don't have things like that. And so I'm a bit overwhelmed by the technology. And that's also, I want to say a few more sentences about my background. My institute won't be long, but maybe it makes sense to give a bit of a, that. And then, of course, the main thing is that I want to present a Fulfill project, which is about sufficiency-oriented lifestyles. So I will start on what we mean with this term, then how the project is structured, what we did find so far. We are now, it's a 3-year project, and nearly 2 years. Yeah, I think it's now a month 24 are behind us. So really kind of in the middle of work. And so I'm not really in a position to draw conclusions at this point. So I found a bit overwhelmed myself in making ends meet to put this into a presentation. Of course, I made a selection. I hope it fits with what you're interested in, but yeah, just see and feel free to ask questions and everything. And then, yeah, and that's kind of also done the part in the end when I'm looking forward really to inputs and feedbacks and questions. And yeah, so our institute, the Fraunhofer ISI. Fraunhofer is a research society in Germany. We have, I think, 30,000 researchers in it. I know half of them are engineers, I think. And I'm from the other half. I'm a psychologist by training and joined Fraunhofer a bit more than 10 years ago. And at the ISI, and what we are doing is innovation studies. I'm part of the energy department. What we are doing is really look into what are kind of the technologies, the innovations that are coming, how can they contribute to fighting climate change, to the energy transition, etc. And we do this from a variety of disciplines. We have a bit of basic funding, which we just get to be there, kind of, but that's something like 20%. And the rest we're doing is through research projects. So we're working on, very much project-based in our daily life. And yeah, last year we turned 50. I was supposed to moderate a party, and then I got Corona, so I'm feeling a bit distant to this event and let it disappear. As I said, I'm based in the energy department. I have a research group I'm leading. It's called Actors and Acceptance and the Transformation of the Energy System. Unfortunately, we couldn't think of a longer name. So if you have ideas for additions, we are open to that. The Institute overall has 7 departments, 2 of them focusing on energy. And actually, starting with October, my team and myself, we go to the energy department, as I will become one of 2 department heads over there. So I'm also here to promote what my colleagues are doing. So working on renewable energy, on energy and climate policies, electricity markets and infrastructure. So yeah, my focus will extend probably, and the other teams are more like this, doing this typical innovations research, innovation, knowledge economy, foresight, but also and but also more sustainability issues in a broader sense. Now, finally, that's the group with the long name. That's our team, and how we understand ourselves is that we are kind of working on the juncture between the transitions and innovation studies on the one hand, on more psychological approaches on the other hand. From our background, we are a mixture of all types of social scientists. We have people coming from human geography, from, of course, psychology. So there are other psychologists besides myself, from sociology, from political sciences. We usually work a lot with data, evidence-based, qualitatively, quantitatively, kind of what's appropriate in the project. And we hardly have pure social science projects. So usually we work with our economists and engineers. The Fulfill project, in a way, is a very typical one in the way it is structured. But before I could say more about Fulfill itself, we start. Starting on what's been the headline, these sufficiency-oriented lifestyles. What is it? And what we are interested in is, I mean, sufficiency related. I think it soon is clear or obvious that this is about reducing environmental impact and then currently that's a lot about reducing, of course, carbon emissions, and then lifestyle is what happens. I mean, it refers to people, it refers to groups of people and what they do in their daily life, and then how these two things interact. And what we started with in the definition, because we think it's really important, is to link this also with well-being. So, because of course you can save a lot or lead a very environmental friendly life if you don't. I mean, if you are not able to consume anything, but then if it makes you sick or unhappy or you're excluded from society, that's not really the way. So we combined that in our definition that we said it's a way of living that it combines staying within planetary boundaries, but to be honest, we actually only look into carbon emissions and contributes to society and also individual well-being. And to make this really specific, what it is about. So it's of course about the things that probably quite easily come to our minds. So like traveling less, but of course not being excluded from participating with society, but for example, having fun at home, maybe not within your own home, but in your hometown. So kind of different types of leisure activities, less motorized transport and cycling instead, contributing to personal health, etc., living in smaller homes. And actually that's been a finding in several studies in Germany, that sometimes people really, what they don't like about the big homes is that it's a lot of cleaning. So there's a chance into becoming more happy because you spend less time and effort on these household issues, or have healthy plant-based food and kind of low-tech lifestyles. Again, that's a finding also from others, that we know that while all of these many technologies, they allow us to be everywhere at once, but kind of add a lot of stress usually. So trying to find our way around. Then we also, but of course, also in an example I've been giving that been individual focus. So like people do, individuals are cycling or how they spend their time, but whether or not people are doing that and whether or not this is contributing to well-being is of course embedded in the wider societal framework. So in the project, we differentiate between this general societal framework providing like legislation, overall conditions for lifestyles, and which also that will need to change if we want to really enable sufficiency-oriented lifestyle, and then this is then linked to providing specific infrastructures so that this could lead to a changed lifestyle, which is mirrored in what we call here sufficiency habits. So they're really then the individual level behaviors and measures. And kind of with this figure, we are trying to embed that, and this also already captures the levels we're looking into and trying to connect in the project. So this individual, household, small group level, the micro level, with the meso one, so which is more on the moving on communities, initiatives, municipalities, towns, and all the structures connected to that. Maybe also more like identical groups based on identities than on formal structures into a national context, and then of course a overall global context. And that's also where these three terms that I had on the last slide kind of trying to fit in, that we have the overall system as a framework leading to certain infrastructures, and then the habits more on the lower level, but shaped by all of these. Yeah, so kind of summing this up with the sufficiency principle, I think the main point here is that we see it as that it enables also structural change as a consequence, but it needs it also as a precondition, so kind of, yeah, moving backward, forward. And when we move on to measuring this on the individual level, we look into carbon footprints, but also into well-being, and then on the macro level, more and more detail on infrastructures and societal framework issues, but of course they are all connected. And that's actually the task of also this third year of, yeah, really bringing these things together. Now, specifically on the project, I've been talking a lot about that our aim is to combine this micro-macro perspective, and for this reason, more from a disciplinary point of view, what we are bringing together is social science and humanities approaches, so mainly psychology, sociology. On the one hand, on the other hand, we try to bring them together with scenario-based studies, with techno-economic assessment or prospective studies, so that we can embed these lifestyle changes into the overall system. And in our last year, we'll now be working, trying to come up with the systemic impact. That's not the full team, but it's the newest picture with most of the team when we had a workshop in Brussels. So it's a trans and interdisciplinary consortium with 8 partners from 5 countries. Fraunhofer is the coordinator. We have the Wuppertal Institute. We have EURAC from Italy, which is also an applied research institute. We have the Jacques Delors Institute, which is a political think tank based mainly in Paris. We have Association Negawatt. I'm not sure if you heard about them, but they've been promoting this sobriety, sufficiency principle a lot in the last year. So it's I think kind of something in between an NGO and a think tank. And then Polimi from Milano as a university, and then 2 further NGOs which are mainly involved with supporting us, reaching out to citizens, involving them in research, etc. Yeah, and we have another year to go. It's funded by the Horizon Europe, and it was funded in a period where it was very difficult to include UK partners, because we've been thinking about making you part of the consortium with CAS, but it was not certain at the time. So we're very happy so that we at least have this cooperation with the advisory board. So that's the structure of the project. And if you have ever worked on a European research project, you know that you have the obligation to produce the long list of deliverables and everything. So on many of these things, we have already published reports, which you can find on our website. I originally intended to put them in, but then I realized the page would just get very full. So just a general promotional advert here that you know that some of the findings you can already read them. For example, the ones where we built the basis on coming back with the definitions I already referred to, also translating this into a system of indicators and then developing our research design. That was the first step in the first year. And then this was followed by, which is still ongoing, the kind of really empirical phase on the micro and the meso level, the micro level, looking into individuals, households with surveys and interviews. I'll say more about that. Also because it's a work package my institution is leading, and there's kind of my key research competence. We have concluded the work on the municipalities and communities, which was done by the Wuppertal Institute, and I have a short glance on that. They talk with a lot of people from sufficiency initiatives, etc. And currently starting is now this step to so kind of scaling up on the macro level, which is supposed to lead to this evaluation of impacts on the climate, but also more broadly on economy and society. There will be a macroeconomic modeling through input-output modeling, but also a qualitative, more scenario type analysis of very broader impacts, for example on gender issues or etc. But that's really work in progress. And of course, we have a lot of dissemination and also citizen and policymaker engagement as part of the project. So we will have our third citizen workshop now in November, where we have had a constant exchange with different groups of citizens. While I think this third one will be the most exciting one, because in this we bring together now really people from all of the countries of the partners and with various backgrounds. So where are we, or what did we find so far? As I said, I will focus on the micro level part. And here we are still in the middle of a lot of empirical work. We have, what the project foresees, 2 big waves of surveys. The first one's completed, the second one's running. And we also had interview studies in our 5 countries. And what I'm not talking about is that all of that also happened in India as a comparison outside Europe, because there we are also still in the middle of, I saw the draft report this morning, so yeah, it's not included here yet, but already, we see that it was worthwhile to have also this comparison with a completely different country. In the survey, we measured the things that were part of the definition, so the carbon footprint, the well-being, but of course also things that we try to explain. And what we want to find out was, on the one hand, I mean, do we see something like sufficiency-oriented lifestyles already today, and what are kind of the conditions around them, or what are differences between people who are living a different type of lifestyle, and how does this relate to social deprivation? And then we try to give more depth to that through these interviews, where we had people kind of really being part of this type of movement, or whatever you call it, so people from initiatives on the one hand, but on the other hand, we had interviews with the average respondent from our panel. So we kind of selected people who were average on the footprint and many things, so to get their perspective to this overall idea of lifestyle changes. So just a small glance at the findings. This carbon footprint, it didn't cover everything. So we didn't cover, for example, a broader consumption, but we included the energy-based ones, so transport, electricity and heating, and also diet. And then we had a well-being measure building on the WHO measure. So it refers to health issues, but also to social issues. And then we had long discussions on what do we say, what is a sufficient lifestyle today? So, I mean, you could do that in very different ways, and you could start on a normative approach, for example, like what would lifestyles need to be like to reach climate goals or whatever. But in the end, we said we just look at the lowest 25%, and then combine this with the well-being measures, so that we say that those in these lowest 25% overall and a high level of well-being are those we are interested in and want to analyze further. And what we find is that there's a small group of people which we now call very sufficient, meaning that in all of these 4 sectors we looked at, they have very low emissions and they are high in well-being. So we have the 3 to 4%, and we can characterize them. They are more, not all of them, but more frequently they are female. They tend to have a higher income, and they seemed in a way to be conscious about exactly this lifestyle. So they have a sufficiency orientation, that this was something like being critical of consumption, of overconsumption, etc., and also environmental identity. They have a group that's still in these lower 25%, but more varied across these behavioral domains, but still below average and high in well-being. And then you already see they're less really to be characterized, but still we found here more like a political support for environmental topics. And then we have those who are low in emissions, but also low in well-being. So kind of, I mean, that's what we want to avoid as a society. This group is growing. And again, here we see they are mainly characterized by things that are really related to also to income issues, like not working full-time in many countries, also not having permanent jobs, and also again more women than men in this. We then combine, or we try to understand this better also by combining this from the findings from the interviews. And what we see here is, maybe I start with that, is that this concept of sufficiency is for usually it's supported by those living it, but it's not a purpose. It's more the side effect, or adds to whatever they are doing, but they have other reasons for having the type of lifestyle they are having. And as we also surveyed people, these average people, here we found quite a difference on perceptions regarding this concept of living sufficiency-oriented, especially people on a low income perceive this as a strong threat to their kind of an additional burden. Yeah, so that could come up possibly. Other things that played an important role is time availability. So to live, it's probably not very surprising, but of course, to cycle in everyday life, you need time. To get all the vegetables, you need time. So that really came up. We also found differences regarding the historic context. So with Latvia and Eastern Germany, for example, we had post-socialist countries, and this played quite a role for people from these areas and things like that. And yeah, and then the interconnectedness with well-being showed to be really intertwined, of course, one leading to the other. And this fits well, but we are still in the process of integrating this more with the findings from the meso level, where that there's a kind of a list of the numbers of the empirical work that happened there. And so this was focused around initiatives and it was quite a variety of initiatives, and we did not choose them because they had sufficiency on their, their front page, but as they had a purpose that fitted with the idea. So it's not necessarily their self-description. And we had them from different fields, so consumption, housing, mobility, food, but also, really broader. So people living in eco-villages targeting many areas of life, etc. And then we also worked with the corresponding municipalities, trying to find out, so how, does that fit together? Is this a movement or not? And what came up very clearly is that they are kind of a strange element in the current system. Some of them are very successful, kind of finding volunteers to support it and striving, etc. But still, they are very often there's a tension between them and kind of the normal societal system. And this is important, as many of them are then in the need of external support. And so, in a way, probably it's the usual thing you find when you look into new developments, but yeah, came up. So now, what we are currently working on is the second wave of the survey, and that's partly longitudinal. So we will look into the stability of especially well-being on the carbon footprint to see does this change over the years, or is it relatively stable? Or, yeah, how does this develop? And another part of the sample, we did smaller experiments, mostly focusing on policy instruments, for instruments very clearly supporting these ideas from the sufficiency field, like smaller houses, etc. And we tried to see how to combine these measures with other measures, so to maybe they could be acceptable. And these policy instruments is also something we are doing. We are completing case studies at the moment. And then, as I said at the beginning, we are working on this upscaling impact assessment, working with the data so that it can support the models, etc. Yeah, that's it.